Remember the story of Samson and Delilah?
The story of Samson is angels, angel of the Lord, basically God himself, comes to Samson's parents and says a true thing, which is your son is going to be a great thing. I have this plan for his life. You have to he has to live in a certain way where he doesn't drink wine, doesn't cut his hair, and doesn't touch a corpse. It's a Nazarite vow, and I think it was so extreme with Samson he wasn't even allowed to eat grapes or something like that because he was destined for such greatness, set aside for such purity. So that's the story of Samson, right? Okay, that's how it starts, and then it's like Samson then marries the person he shouldn't marry, this person that is attractive in his eyes and not the right person for him. And so to see what Vaknin is saying, I mean, you could find an element of narcissism there, that he's choosing a woman, going after his own lusts. It could be like a self-worship thing, but it's like a super big stretch. But anyway, we'll see what Vaknin has to say. Yeah, I forgot to mention that this woman that he wasn't supposed to marry, like 7 times betrays him, asking him like, oh, so what keeps your strength? And then he'd make up something that would take away his strength, and then she would get all the enemy people inside the house to then do that thing. Every time he would just beat them all up and still be strong, and every single time he would then trust her again when she asked him again. So how would that be related to narcissism? Anyway, finally he tells her the truth, that needs to cut his hair, and so she does it again. She cuts his hair in the sleep. And a point here would be that he had touched the corpse, he had drunken wine, and so all that was left for him not completing this vow, which he was told to maintain and complete so that he could basically keep his super strength. The last thing he was missing was cutting his hair. So this is about the betrayal from Delilah, is about pushing someone else to not be able to complete all their promises to the Lord, and then the Lord withdrawing his favor. So narcissism, loving yourself, I mean, it's just a weird take, really weird take. The enemies come in, they take him away captive, and he's very sad and he's very remorseful, and they blind him and they put him to work, and then they display him in front of all the enemies in a big gathering, because he was one of the greatest enemies. He was the most powerful man in all of the world. He was the first, basically, Hulk, Superman with a super strength, and he could kill thousands in one go, just with a jawbone of an ass, of a donkey. And so, in his dying moments, his hair grew back a bit, and he asked the Lord for some strength in order to repent for the bad stuff that he's done, and he kills all the generals that have gathered to watch him be in a deprived state, because he's like attached to 2 pillars, and then he pulls the pillars and collapses the whole building. So that's the story of Samson in a nutshell. So how Vaknin is going to relate it to narcissism, and is going to say that Samson's a narcissist, and Delilah's love is what scares him, like her love for her people, or her love for the enemies of the people of God. So if the love of the enemies of the people of God are what kill the first narcissist, which is Samson, like, what is he trying to get at? That that the enemies of God can kill a narcissist, and the love that you have for the enemies of God can kill a narcissist. I mean, that's basically what he's like implying. That's what he's reading in to the Bible, which kind of makes sense, because he is an enemy of God. He doesn't acknowledge God, doesn't accept God in his heart, in his mind, doesn't even really understand like the stories of the Bible, or what God represents. Like,
Samson and Delilah is a parable. Samson was one heck of a narcissist. One of the first narcissists described in the Bible. Delilah cut his...
to just claim that it's a parable is just such a weird way to interpret like historical document. Like, I'll look it up right now. Yeah, it's in the book of Judges 16. So the book of Judges, which is the Hebrew text, the Jewish text, talking about this period of history where there are the judges ruling, and it's jotting down this historical person in this historical book. It's an historical account. There's nothing to do with the parable. So just to start off from saying it's a parable just shows so much ignorance, and also kind of, okay, so you have no respect for this book and you just make up lies about it. So it's just not a good start. So he says it's one of the first narcissists described in the Bible. Now when I first watched this, I misconstrued that and misunderstood that as one of the first narcissists in the history, and we find him in the Bible. So okay, one of the first narcissists in the Bible. I already made a point in my previous video that the first real narcissist would be Satan, and that's where narcissism actually comes from in its origins. However, this is suggesting that there were other narcissists, and that Samson was one of them, and one of the earliest ones. Don't know who else could be the other ones. And it's an interesting point because Samson is pretty much seen as like this anti-hero, this kind of, he was really just like, he just partied a lot and just kind of didn't really take his responsibilities well. He was one of the judges of Israel for a long time, and yeah, he marries out. He just doesn't really toe the line, doesn't really, but it's more an anti-hero than a narcissist if you had to describe him. But we know that Sam likes to put everything onto the narcissistic kind of thing, and it's very infectious, and it's very easy to start doing yourself. Yeah.
Hair rendered him weak. Love made Samson, the strongest man on earth, weak.
There is actually so much to unpack here. So Vaknin is saying that love made the strong weak. So love being God, because in John it says that God is love. So God made Samson, who is strong, weak. That's true. That did happen because he wasn't completing the promises. He wasn't keeping the vow that he made with God, that he made with love. God is love. God is the creator of everything. And he is love. So, but how does this then turn into... It just enters into the land of confusion trying to understand what Sam is trying to communicate here.
And a captive, a hostage of the enemy. So Delilah, Samson's love, was the enemy. So when you do want to interact via love, via emotions, the narcissist feels terrified. And to overcome this terror...
So it's talking about, like, archetypally, the love of a woman can make you weak. Therefore, narcissists feel terror when emotions come up. It's just so odd. It's really, really weird. He could have used, if he was in truth, could have used there could have been a really great like cutaway, and he could have talked about it. But it's really hard to relate and push it in. So why does he choose that parable? And I believe that he chooses that because he believes that love and that God makes you weak, and him being like Samson, this ubermensch, uber self, doesn't want any of that stuff. That's my take. It's not directly extractable, but indirectly extractable from what he said. What's directly extractable, I'd say, besides like misunderstanding, would be that that somehow his book of his people is giving a parable to support his paradigm and his perspective that love makes you weak. I mean, that's what you can directly extract. There you go. Odd. It's just another way that his atheism is just vomiting itself out. And let's say it's true. Let's say it does make you weak. If you continue the story of Samson, in that weakness, it was then used for greatness. And if he had continued in his strength, he would have continued in his rebellion and doing bad stuff, and he would have done it very strongly, right? He would have continued in that way. But because he was made weak by love, he was put in such a vulnerable position that, again, he could finally do just the one act of self-sacrifice and redemption to redeem himself. So then there's just way too much hope for the narcissist in that paradigm, which doesn't fit with what is taught here. It's essentially Vaknin doesn't want to go to this vulnerable, weak place, which love will take him if he accepts it and believes it and wants it and desires it and allows emotions. It will take him to this weak place that he doesn't want to go, but where he can actually do the one great redemptive thing for all the actual horrendous stuff that he does. Every video that comes up, it just makes me a little bit sick, particularly when he's talking about how the narcissist can seduce you, and oh my goodness, it just so that's that.